If people go through a bad divorce, bad breakup, their hair falls out. Their skin doesn't look the same. Women who are pregnant start to get this glow. It's not just a look, it's an actual change in your skin biology. So the skin's an amazing organ that will tell you in real time, something's going on or something is not right, and no other organ can do that.
This is the Pursuit of Wellness podcast, and I'm your host, Mari Llewellyn. Hi guys, welcome back to the Pursuit of Wellness podcast. Today I sit down with Dr. Teo Soleymani to dive into the complex world of skin health, aging, and cancer prevention. I am so happy we did an episode on this. I have melanoma in my family. It's something I'm aware of, but I really don't know how to avoid it or what I can do. And he was so knowledgeable. We unpack the misconceptions about skin cancer and the role of our skin in reflecting internal health, the surprising effects of diet and lifestyle on skin quality. He shares invaluable advice on sun exposure, the pros and cons of different sunscreens, and the impact of products like Melanotan and retinoids on skin health. We also explore how common issues like acne and premature aging can relate to factors like hormone mimickers and pore-clogging ingredients. Whether you're looking to protect your skin or decode your acne journey, this episode is packed with essential tips and insights on taking care of your skin for life. You guys are going to love this episode. It was mind-blowing to me, and now I feel like I have great tips moving forward with my skin health. So without further ado, let's hop into this episode with Dr. Teo. Dr. Teo, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You have a very impressive resume. Let's see if I can get this correct. You are a Stanford-trained, double board certified dermatologist and fellowship-trained skin cancer and facial reconstructive surgeon.
Sounds better on paper than in real life, but yeah, thank you.
No, this is very impressive, and I
appreciate that.
So excited to dive really deep on skin today.
Yeah.
I've done a few episodes on acne and aging, but I really, really want to discuss skin cancer.
Totally.
Sun exposure, sunscreen. I think all of us are aware that skin cancer is dangerous and something we should avoid. And I think people are more aware of it now than they used to be. But I still think there's a lot of misconceptions. And I think even I have misconceptions about it. So I really want to dive deep and learn.
Totally.
Let's start with just how you became interested in this field. How did you find dermatology?
So I had somewhat of an unusual route, which I realize isn't as unusual as I thought it was. I started in brain surgery. So my training was originally geared towards neurosurgery. And I think it was like I was 28 hours into the hospital and I realized I wanted to have a family more than I wanted to be in the hospital, and no knock to any neurosurgeon out there, but it just wasn't conducive to what I saw my life to be. So at the time I decided to make a career change, and I picked a specialty that would be the furthest from being in the hospital, which became dermatology. And I was fortunate enough to go up to Stanford to do my training, but while I was there, I still got really interested. I always liked cancer biology. I always liked working with my hands. I felt like I was pretty good at surgery. So that kind of resonated and continued in my mindset as to what I wanted to be. But one thing I noticed going through med school is whenever I'd go to a family event or like a gathering, nobody ever came to me and said, "Hey, what does my liver look like?" They would always point to "Can you take a look at this? And can you take a look at this? Or what do you think this growth is?" I'm like, I have a lot of derm questions. Why don't I decide on dermatology? And I think it was the best thing that ever happened because it's such a cool organ.
Yeah.
And it's probably the last specialty in which you can do a lot of things. So I'm very, very lucky to practice what I practice and in the city that I practice.
Since you started to now, what have you noticed has changed with skin cancer research?
So the skin's an amazing organ, right? I think it's the only organ that will tell you in real time if something is going on with your body, whether it's your physical health or your mental health or your psychosocial stressors. I think there's an alarming rate of skin cancer in young adults. I see probably in my practice a dozen patients a week that I operate on under the age of 30. And this wasn't the case even 20 years ago. The adage that this is all a problem of elderly or a problem of aging adult populations is no longer true. In our generation, People aren't tanning the way they were in the 70s, 80s, 90s. So there's something else we haven't pinpointed yet. And I think eventually there will be a big connection between environmental factors, diet, gut health, all of these things that will show itself in the coming years. We used to say it's a problem of people who laid out on the beach, which it still is to a certain extent, but it doesn't account for my patients who are 18, 19, 20, and in fact, my deadliest forms of skin cancer are usually in young adults in sun-protected areas. So that's an area we just don't understand very well, and there's a lot of research being done as to why that is.
So, okay, I'm thinking of Khloe Kardashian
Yeah,
as a standout
yeah,
example. And it was kind of cool how she publicized, and it was on her face, correct?
Yeah.
I think it was really cool how she publicized that. I also just want to touch on, you mentioned the skin is a really cool organ because it's one of the only organs that shows us when something's wrong. And I personally went through a 10-year acne journey that I couldn't figure out, but my skin was repeatedly telling me something's wrong.
Totally.
And it was just a really interesting experience because obviously it was like awful to have such bad acne for so long. But when I finally got to the reason, it was H. pylori. And my listeners are probably tired of me talking about H. pylori, but I just think it's really interesting because if I had not had the acne, I would not have gone to the extent that I went to find out what was going on in my gut. So I do think that's a really important point.
Yeah.
What would you say are the biggest misconceptions with skin cancer?
So, I mean, before we even hone in on skin cancer, what you mentioned about the skin and being a marker is of what's going on inside is 100% true. I mean, just the simplest thing, like kids in college during finals, and when we talk about skin, we got to talk about hair and nails because they're all connected. They're the same organ system. Kids in finals will come to my practice with their hair falling out in clumps. The hair is an excellent biosensor of all the stresses in your body. People who have gut infections, exactly like what you mentioned. I have a patient right now who's a very close family friend who has been dealing with very refractory hives, head to toe. And H. pylori was one of the culprits.
No.
Yeah. So there's a huge connection between the gut microbiome, the gut immune system, and then the skin's response to it. So it's all about kind of immune homeostasis and well-being. If people go through a bad divorce, bad breakup, their hair falls out. Their skin doesn't look the same. Women who are pregnant start to get this glow. It's not just a look, it's an actual change in your skin biology. So the skin's an amazing organ that will tell you in real time, something's going on or something is not right, and no other organ can do that. In regards to skin cancer, I think there's a lot of misconceptions. One, it's not a problem of the elderly. In fact, most of my patients who die of melanoma, which is historically our deadliest form of skin cancer, are young adults. It's the second most common cause of death in women ages 25 to 35. That nobody ever talks about that. It's not just sun-related. I get this misconception all the time. The majority of melanomas that I see in young adults are in sun-protected areas. There's other causes, things like HPV, things like environmental triggers, like people who drink from well water. So why I bring this up is, unfortunately, in dermatology, there's a lot of fear-mongering. And I don't want to say fear-mongering, but there's a lot of there's this sense of making people feel guilty that they brought this upon themselves, or they did this. That one time you went to the beach, you didn't wear sunscreen, that's the cause. And it's not true. I enjoy the sun. I'm a skin cancer surgeon. I'm outside with my kids all the time. Do I burn? No, I try not to. But I also know that's not the only culprit. Probably the biggest thing that people don't look at is just your family history. If you have a strong family history, maybe you should take some additional forms of protection. If you don't have a strong family history, maybe your genetics tolerates a little bit more UV exposure and other things. But definitely misconceptions are young adults are not implicated. That's not true. Sun is the only cause. That's not true.
Okay. So those extra measures, I'm kind of coming from a personal standpoint here, and I'm hoping people listening can relate. My mum had melanoma and had to have it removed on her back. And like you said, she blamed herself because she was like, she lived in Portugal as a kid. She was like, I used to lay out on the tinfoil thing with the oil. And, I think she did probably lay out in the sun too much. But there definitely is some like shame connected with it.
Yeah.
And I went through a phase, and I'm going to put my hands up and say I went to tanning beds probably for a year straight in college.
I've done it.
Ugh.
I've done it.
It's my biggest regret.
We didn't know any better.
I went to college and everyone there was from New Jersey.
Yeah.
Everyone did it. And I was like, oh, I
everybody wants
guess.
to be tan. Yeah.
and
No, I get
I'm
it.
from the UK. I'm not a tan person. So I was like, this makes me look better. I'm going to go. But now I'm pretty paranoid about melanoma. So I go to the dermatologist. I get full body skin checks.
Good.
What other things should I be doing to catch it early if I get it?
So more likely than not, your mom's melanoma was probably not purely driven from the sun because it was on her back. If it was purely sun related, usually we see it on the head and neck or areas of chronic sun damage. So that's one. What is worrisome is usually those melanomas have a strong hereditary component. So you have probably an increased susceptibility. So you're doing all the right things.
Okay.
Obviously, don't burn when you're out in the sun, but you can enjoy the sun. There's a component of being outdoors that makes you feel well that translates into actual physical wellness. So if you're outside, you're being healthy, you're being active, that gives you a sense of wellness and health that I can't measure in a test tube per se, but you're obviously healthier, so it's good for your overall well-being. Additional things that you can do, aside from surveillance, aside from sunscreen, there are supplements that reduce your skin cancer risk. I like nicotinamide. It's a supplement that's been shown to reduce your non-melanoma skin cancer risk by up to 30%. There is a supplement called Polypodium leucotomus, which is from a fern in the Amazon rainforest that you can take that will reduce your chance of burning while being out in the sun, so you can be outside longer before you need to apply or reapply. I personally take a product called sun powder that has all that in that, something I formulated originally for my patients. But just being somebody based in Los Angeles, sun is 24 hours, 365 days a year. So it's sometimes impossible to protect yourself or reapply for swimming, surfing, things like that.
Yeah.
Aside from that, being proactive is the number one thing you can do. Surveying your own skin. You go to the dermatologist maybe once a year, maybe twice a year, right? That's 2 time intervals. Simple exams, looking at your skin, having a significant other or somebody that can help you out, survey your skin is really, really powerful. Early detection, just like any other cancer, whether we're talking about breast, colon, prostate, skin, early detection is what dictates good outcomes.
Yeah.
So one, the guilting thing sucks. Your mom didn't do it to herself. And even if she did have some sun, it was in an era where we didn't know any better. Number 2, I think if you catch it early, and hopefully she did, the outcomes are phenomenal. Now, some people, unfortunately, will succumb to skin cancer. It's just a dark reality that we have. But unlike looking at your lungs or looking at your liver or looking at any other organ system where you can't really see it, the skin will tell you right away, hey, something's here that shouldn't be here. So just being proactive is really, really important.
Greg and I are both very particular with the ingredients and foods we have in our house, and sometimes the items we're looking for are a little bit niche, and that's why we love Thrive Market. We've been using Thrive Market for years now. It's absolutely amazing. They have trusted ingredients. Over the last 75 years, over 10,000 chemicals have been introduced to our food supply, but at Thrive Market, they bring their members the highest quality brands and restrict more than 1,000 ingredients found at conventional grocery stores. Certified organic is always their first choice. They have so many options. I really like to shop through the different categories. So you could shop paleo, keto, vegan. They have snacks, they have kids food, whatever you guys need. Every single product is vetted by their expert team of product innovators and category managers. They are on a mission to make healthy and sustainable living easy and affordable for everyone. They seek out brands and products with ethical practices, including fair pay and treatment for workers, strict quality standards, and safe working conditions. Your membership even sponsors one for a family in need. Want to shop at a grocery store that actually cares for your health? Go to thrivemarket.com/pow for 30% off your first order plus a free $60 gift. That's THRIVE market.com/pow, POW. You guys know I always am very diligent with the products I use. Everyday products like makeup, skincare, toothpaste. Toothpaste is one I think a lot of people skip over, but most commercial toothpastes are filled with harsh chemicals, artificial flavors, and preservatives, not things you want to be putting in your mouth, let alone eating. And that is why Bite makes dry toothpaste tablets made with clean ingredients that are sulfate-free, palm oil-free, and glycerin-free. The bits are so convenient. You just pop it in your mouth, chew it up, and start brushing. It will turn into the paste you're used to, but with no plastic tube or messy paste. Plus, they come in refillable glass jars and send refills in compostable pouches, so it's better for our bodies and the earth. Byte is offering our listeners 20% off your first order. Go to trybyte.com/POW or use code POW at checkout to claim this deal. That's trybyte.com/POW. You mentioned the fatality rate of melanoma, which obviously is like a dark topic, but just to, I guess from my own ignorance, I don't understand if someone has melanoma and it's bad, is that because they didn't catch it early enough? Like, how do you determine when it's bad? And then do they go through the same treatments as someone with regular cancer? Do they do chemo?
Great question. So when we talk about skin cancer, there's generally three main forms. There's basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, and melanoma. For every one melanoma has been historically our deadliest form, but it's also one of the more rarer forms. So for every one melanoma, there's 10 of the non-melanomas. So in the United States alone, about 1 in 4 Americans will develop either a basal cell or a squamous cell carcinoma.
Okay.
Melanoma, the average number of patients that die is 1 every 52 minutes in the United States. Nobody ever talks about that. Now, the good news is that trend is it's downtrending, partly because of the development of what's called immunotherapy. It won the Nobel Prize in 2018 in the way we treat cancer, and it started from skin. And now we use it for every cancer under the sun, colon, breast, lung, kidney, you name it. But it changed the way we treat patients with melanoma. And the good news is, we see the death rates decreasing more and more. Is it because we didn't catch it early? Partly. But there are some melanomas that are just really, unfortunately, bad players. They just, from the time they start to the time they spread throughout the body can be as short as a month. Now, importantly, melanomas fall in second in line in the United States to skin cancer deaths. The number one thing has become squamous cell carcinomas, and people don't talk about that either, but that's about a death every 40 minutes in the US.
Wow.
And that's much more heavily sun-related, but fortunately not a problem of young adults. It is something that is chronic and requires a lot of accumulations of sun damage for it to develop. So usually you can pick that up before it's too late, unlike sometimes melanoma. There's been a lot of very well-known celebrities, very well-known athletes that are dealing with melanoma, including metastatic melanoma.
Yeah.
So everybody from Bob Marley to Jimmy Carter. Bob Marley famously passed away from melanoma, and Jimmy Carter is kept alive because of those immunotherapies. So a lot to unveil in the skin world, and I don't want to bring like fear into people's minds, but it's an easy organ to check. So just get it checked.
When you check your own skin, I think something that I get confused about is what constitutes as melanoma. Like, how do you know? Does it always look like a weird shape, or like what should you look for?
Simplest things. There's all these like rules, the ABCDs, etc. The simplest things is if you have a growth that doesn't heal in a month. The 1 month is a cutoff between something that was like a pimple or a bug bite or an ingrown hair to something that should probably be checked.
Okay.
So if you develop something that doesn't heal in a month, if you develop something that bleeds easily, those are the first 2 signs of skin cancer. Now, for melanoma historically has been what looks like an ugly mole. So when we talk about moles, finding a melanoma is like playing Where's Waldo, right? You have a field of normal moles and you're looking for that bad player. The things that you want to look out for historically have been the ABCDs that we talk about. So if you have a mole that's kind of asymmetric, you can't fold it upon itself evenly. If you have a mole that has multiple colors, if you have a mole that has irregular borders, if you have a mole that's large, so we say a number 2 pencil tip eraser. But my biggest one is the E, which isn't even in the ABCDs, is evolution. So if your mole is changing, you have a new growth that wasn't there before, you have something that was stable and is now changing shape or color, you should get that checked. Now, Young adults can develop new things up until around age 35 to 40, but that doesn't mean you get a carte blanche to say, oh, hey, that doc said up until 40, I can make new things. But generally, our skin is a little more dynamic. And then after around 35 to 40, we shouldn't really be making new moles. So anything new, there's that evolution part, should be checked.
What is a mole? Like, what are they?
That's a great question. A mole...
I've never thought about that till right now, but
I don't know if I've ever been asked that. So a mole is a collection of cells called nevus cells. And they are like the cells that kind of produce the color in our skin.
Okay.
They're a derivative of those cell lines that cluster together in the skin.
Mm-hmm.
So they usually look as like a brown bump that's been there since childhood or early adulthood. And they tend to be hereditary as well. So if mom or dad was moly, you may be moly. What's important to know is that almost 90% of melanomas don't arise in an existing mole. They arise in normal skin. Why we make a big stink about moles is that melanomas look like moles. So only 10% arise in existing moles. That's why being proactive, having somebody look at your skin and say, okay, I remember that mole on the shoulder. That's always been there. I remember that mole on the belly. That's always been there. And then looking for change over time. Hey, that one on the upper back wasn't there before. What is that? That's how you detect it. So there's the Where's Waldo game to play. But moles are usually just a beauty mark. You know, the most famous one I think of is Cindy Crawford's on her upper lip.
Yep.
They're meaningless. They're just part of your normal skin biology.
I always thought it happened to existing moles. I don't know why I thought that.
Yeah, a lot of people think that.
Yeah.
Like 90%, almost 90% of melanomas arise in normal skin.
Have you heard of this stuff? I don't know the scientific name for it, but I remember there was a kind of phase of it being popular when I was in college of Melanotan.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what that is?
Yeah. So Melanotan and Melanotan 2, which it's come back, is this hormone mimicker that mimics a hormone that's released from our pituitary that increases the amount of cells that produce our skin's color. Mm-hmm. So women and men snort this.
Snort?
Yeah, they snort it. It's a spray. They spray it up their nose. It used to be a pill, wasn't very effective. Then they made it an injection, but it wasn't very effective. So the quickest way to your pituitary, which is right like sitting in the center of your forehead area, is through the nose. So they snort this artificial hormone in hopes to stimulate the brain to release more of the natural hormone to produce our skin's color.
To be more tan.
Yeah, to be more tan.
Is that
there's
sketchy?
A lot of problems. I mean, I wouldn't snort anything to begin with, let alone something to tan you. I mean, there's easier ways, just put on spray tan. But there's a lot of consequences because it mimics a few other hormones that are really important in blood pressure control, really important in salt management and hydration status. So those often overlap. And we've seen a lot of consequences in young adults, especially in Australia and a little bit in Northern Europe countries, Northern European countries, where patients have had bad outcomes. Now, there's been a couple reported cases of melanoma developing from them. I don't know how often they used it, but you can theorize if you're snorting this stuff a lot, your body just doesn't know when to tell the skin cells to stop growing.
Yeah.
And they turn bad. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't recommend snorting anything for skin
that sounds
color.
really sketchy, honestly.
It's just crazy. But I mean, people do anything to be tan.
Listen, I can relate. Like I love to be tan, but I went through a major spray tan phase. Now I put self tanner on. Maybe it's not the best thing ever for my skin, but You know
what's interesting? I see this a lot. Patients who are tan come to my office asking to get lighter.
No.
And patients who are from fair-skinned ethnicities, fair-skinned countries, always want to look tanner. We always want what we can't have.
The grass is always greener.
100%. And the stuff we try to do is just crazy.
I know. Let's face it, summer isn't the only time we get body odor. You can get just as smelly in our favorite fall sweaters, especially when I'm riding or on a run or on the trail and I'm sweating in my workout gear. And that is why I'm so excited to tell you about Lumi Whole Body Deodorant for pits, privates, and beyond. It was created by an OBGYN who discovered odor isn't just an underarm thing, it's an all-over thing. She developed Lumi, a pH-optimized deodorant that is clinically proven to control odor everywhere for up to 72 hours, so fall can be just as fresh. They now have new fall scents that are similar to the fall scents that we love and know, like pumpkin spice lattes, freshly picked apples, fresh coffee, cinnamon, etc. I love the fact that the deodorant is baking soda free and paraben free and pH balanced. They also have fresh, bright scents like clean tangerine, lavender sage, or toasted coconut, plus their new fall scents. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get 15% off all Lumi products with our exclusive code. And if you combine 15% off with the already discounted starter pack, that equals over 40% off with their starter pack. Use code POW, P-O-W, for 15% off your first purchase at lumideodorant.com. That's code POW, P-O-W, at LUMEDEODORANT.com. Please support the show and tell them we sent you. You guys know I am so particular when it comes to skincare. I'm very acne prone, very sensitive, and that's why I love ClearStem. It is the first skincare line that combines all three categories: anti-acne, anti-aging, and clean, meaning free of hormone disruptors and pore-clogging fillers. Danielle and Kaylee are the founders and good friends of mine, and they have both had acne in the past as well, so they really get it. They know what ingredients should and shouldn't be in these products. Some of my favorite are the gentle cleanser, the lip balm, the body lotion. I also love the shampoo and conditioner because I feel like it's not triggering my skin and getting in my pores. And I also love that they have the acne lab test on their website, which is helping thousands of people get to the root cause of their acne through comprehensive lab testing and lifestyle-based recommendations. I feel like acne is such an inner health thing as well, so getting to the root cause is so important. Visit clearstemskincare.com and use code POW at checkout for 20% off your first purchase. Again, that is code POW for 20% off your first purchase on clearstemskincare.com. So sunscreen.
Yeah.
I feel like this is very debated / controversial.
100%.
Crazy. I've had different guests on the show. There's this trend of carnivore lifestyles. And I feel like those people tend to be more sun exposure, no sunscreen. They just put tallow on their skin. That's like a movement right now.
I know.
Of people who don't believe in sun protection. But then I have skin experts on the show who are super pro sunscreen. Which camp do you fall in?
Okay. A lot to talk about here.
Yeah.
So in my practice and in the area I practice, I see a lot of complex and high-risk skin cancers. I've developed a reputation for treating some of the worst in Los Angeles. There's a lot of things about sunscreen that should be considered true and a lot of things that should be questioned. So first and foremost, and I'm going to get a lot of heat for this, I know it, there has not been a single study to date that shows that if you diligently put on sunscreen every day, it decreases your chances of dying from skin cancer. That's number one. Number two, the most common form of skin cancer, which is basal cell carcinoma, almost 1 in 3 Americans, fair-skinned individuals, will develop it. In every single study we've looked at diligent sunscreen use versus no or minimal sunscreen use, there has not been a change in the incidence of basal cell carcinomas developing on sun-exposed skin.
Wow.
So why do we push for sunscreen? There's 2 reasons. One, we know it protects against premature aging. So if you just want to look good, you want to protect yourself from looking like a wrinkled leather bag, you should wear some sunscreen. Number 2, it does decrease the incidence of some garden variety skin cancers, namely some melanomas and some squamous cell carcinomas, but the jury is not out yet as to whether that makes a difference in survival. That's a totally different thing. Now, sunscreen's a regulated drug in the United States. It's considered an over-the-counter non-prescription drug, so the FDA regulates it, unlike other countries. So the US is a little bit slow in putting out new compounds that will provide sun protection. There's been a lot of discussion over the past 5 years about chemical sunscreens and what they do to our bodies. Before we even dive down that path, we know for babies 6 months and younger, historically, the stance from the American Academy of Pediatrics and the American Academy of Dermatology is that we don't recommend chemical sunscreens for babies because baby skin act like mucous membranes, like the inside lining of our mouth, and they absorb what you put on. So for the past 20 years, we've not recommended chemical sunscreens for babies. Now, In the original FDA approval for sunscreens that came out in 1999, there was about 19 chemicals that we had originally considered generally safe and effective. All that's changed in the last 3 years. The majority of those chemicals are now questioned to be no longer generally recognized and safe as safe and effective. There was a really publicized study that came out 2 years ago that showed that with even one application of a chemical sunscreen, when we drew patients' blood, you can see that chemical at 500 times the upper limit of what's accepted as normal.
Oh.
So there's a lot of data and a lot of people questioning, what the hell are we doing? What are we putting on our skin? Do I wear sunscreen? Yeah. Do I forget to apply it? Yeah. Am I a typical guy with kids? Yeah. So I tend to like mineral sunscreens better. If not that I'm against chemical sunscreens, but there is enough smoldering data questioning the safety of some chemical compounds as endocrine disruptors, hormone mimickers, and very minimal to no data for the minerals. So if I have to pick between the two, I'll just pick the mineral. Now,
Okay.
I know the application under makeup, the feel, the grittiness all play a big role as to whether you're going to use it or not. The simplest recommendation I get in my office, they're like, what sunscreen are you going to use? I say, whatever you're going to put on, because it's going to be a glorified paperweight if you buy it and you don't use it.
Yeah.
If I were to pick, though, I pick mineral sunscreens. I like zinc or zinc and titanium. They do provide better broad spectrum coverage. They last longer. There's no endocrine or chemical mimicker of our body's messaging molecules. But if you're not going to wear it, I think chemical sunscreens are okay. There are a few that I would avoid. Octocrylene, some of the oxybenzones, avabenzones. I tend to avoid those. They're not only are they maybe problematic, they're well-known contact allergens too. My wife has an allergy to all the avabenzones and cinemates.
She is an intense one to octocrylene.
Yeah. So octocrylene is notorious. It's actually banned in Europe.
Oh.
Because the breakdown product of octocrylene in the sun is benzophenone, which is a well-known carcinogen. So
That's
octocrylene,
insane.
yeah, I know. And we considered it safe and effective because we thought that when you smeared it on your body, nothing would happen until that study came out showing, oh shit, we can detect it in the blood at way higher levels. Now, the other thing is we didn't have sunscreens, really effective ones 25 years ago. Now that we have them and there's a lot of pushing for them, people start using them at a younger age. Let's say you start at 18. By the time you're 58 or 68, that's 50 years of daily application of something.
Yeah.
Surely there's got to be something that's going to go awry in some patients, maybe not all, maybe a small subset. The other thing that I found is that shade, and not found, I mean, the evidence points to it, shade, clothing, physical barriers will always outperform anything you smear on your skin. Majority of the United States doesn't even apply the right amount. I mean, you got to put a shot glass of sunscreen on to be adequate. And I don't do that most of the time. And I should know better. I'm in a rush. Usually my kids are running around. I'm like, let me just not burn. Let me get out there and take care of them. So there's a lot of variables to sunscreen. Do I think you should wear it? Absolutely. Do I think it's the only way to protect your skin? No. Do I think there's good ones? Totally. Do I think there are bad ones? Totally.
I don't want to get you in trouble.
No trouble.
Can we say, like, what brands should we avoid completely?
I don't know about brands because there's so many brands out there all the time. I tend to avoid chemical sunscreen. So when you look on the back, and if you go to a store, about 90% of the sunscreens available, readily available at pharmacies, places like Sephora, Ulta Beauty, whatever, are chemical sunscreens. So
what's the chemical?
So there's avobenzone, oxybenzone, octocrylene, several other chemical sunscreens. Those are the three most common ones that I see. What you want to look for is zinc or zinc and titanium.
Okay.
A lot of the products that are made to go on really nicely, a little more elegantly, tend to have chemicals or chemical boosters for that feel.
Yeah.
Zinc and titanium, unfortunately, can feel a little gritty.
Okay. Have you heard of the brand Sol and Sky? Is that what it's called? Yeah.
I don't think I have.
Okay, it's new. And I'm curious what you think about it. I'll show you afterwards. But it's new beef tallow, zinc,
Interesting.
very simple sunscreen. And I'm curious I would put it on my body. I'm scared to put tallow on my face.
So I'll tell you a few things. I'm fine with putting tallow on so long as you don't have acne.
See, yeah, I'm so acne prone.
I
I
think
can't.
tallow is fine as a mediator. It behaves almost the same way as petrolatum, like Vaseline or Aquaphor. You can't put it on acne-prone skin. It clogs your pores, you break out.
Yeah.
If you don't have that history, I'm fine with it. What is more important to me is the active ingredient. So zinc is great. I mean, people formulate their own sunscreens at home. The problem with that is having a good sunscreen requires some actual science. You have to check what's called the minimal erythema dose, or simply put, how red your skin gets in a certain amount of time. So to be able to test for that's not that easy. And most of the time when people are formulating things at home, it's not a perfect science. So they're either putting not enough active ingredient, incorrect formulations of active ingredients, so you don't get the coverage or protection that you think you should get. That being said, if you're not going to use anything at all versus that, I'd rather you use that. You just can't put tallow on acne-prone skin.
I can't partake in any of those trends.
Yeah. I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah.
But if you tried it and it works, no problem. I don't see a harm to it. I think I'm open to ideas and trends and fads. If it works for certain people, why not? I don't think there should ever be a hard no or yes, except if it's truly a problem.
Women, I feel like I'm speaking for myself here, but I think my friends do this too. We use different sunscreen on our face than we do on our bodies. Yeah. Is that okay?
So yes, I think it is, because we know that what we consider chronically sun damaged is sun exposed skin.
Yeah.
So your face is way more sun damaged than is your abdomen or your mid-back, unless you live at a beach or live at a nudist colony or something. Yeah, exactly. But even then, you're getting it on your face as well as your body. So your face will always have more UV-related mutations than the rest of your body, hands as well. So I think that's totally fine. What is a problem is women who rely on their makeup's sun protection factor. Because again, unless you're applying a heavy load of makeup, you're usually not applying a shot glass worth.
Yeah.
So the SPF of 15 in your makeup, you're really getting about a 7, which is the equivalent to my skin type in and of itself. So I wouldn't rely on your makeup.
So back to the aging conversation. And I think we covered a lot with skin cancer. I hope we answered a lot of questions there.
Totally.
With the premature aging, how much is the sun impacting that?
So I would say, and this is going to get me in trouble again.
That's okay.
But premature sun is probably 50%.
Okay, what makes up the other 50%?
Genetics.
Oh.
Genetics.
Okay.
So you can see families, ethnicities that tend to age faster, and families and ethnicities that tend not to age as fast. The genetics of certain ethnic skin allows for longer collagen and elastin formation, decreases the risk for UV damage. Now, we can't control our genetics, right? Yeah. But what we can control is environmental triggers. So that's where the sun plays a huge role. And I give this example all the time. You can put a brand new car in the sun, and what's stronger than steel, not our skin, and give it 20 years and that steel starts to rust, right? Or you put a beautiful piece of leather in the sun and don't take care of it, leather will break down and start to wrinkle and crack. Same thing with our skin. So as we get a lot of UV accumulated mutations, what happens over time is there's breakdown of our skin's second layer, which is the dermis. That's where all the fun is. That's where collagen is. That's where elastin is. That's where our blood vessels that volumize our skin reside. So UV will break that down over time. So if you want to look good, you should protect yourself from the sun. Now, you shouldn't have beef with the sun, but you should not burn. You should probably protect yourself from when your skin starts to turn red.
Okay. I'm thinking about my husband's mom right now. She's Italian. She's, I don't know, I think she's almost 60 and she looks amazing. Yeah. But she also is very healthy.
Good.
Takes
plays a
care of
huge role.
herself. Yeah.
Plays
She
a
gets
huge
she
role.
gets quite brown in the sun, but like she really takes care of herself. How much is lifestyle, diet, stress, how much does that impact aging?
It impacts everything in the skin.
Okay.
So we kind of knew this for many, many years. And when I trained up at Stanford, we had a really good center for understanding gut, internal immune homeostasis, and skin health. There's an incredible connection between immune dysregulation, what we put into our bodies, our gut microbiome, and how our skin looks. So there's a few things. Diet plays an immense role. Why? Because things that are pro-inflammatory to the gut tend to be pro-inflammatory to the skin. And inflammation, whether it's in the skin or in the colon or any other organ system, tends to wreak havoc. So if you're constantly eating a shitty diet, you're constantly not doing all the things that you should do to keep inflammation under control, your skin will show that faster. There's a reason why smokers, drinkers tend to age faster. There's a reason why people who are under high periods of stress, namely look at US presidents, there's several aging studies that will show they age much faster than the average matched person. So lifestyle plays a huge role. I mean, and the other thing is it's hard if you do things that are probably not in the healthy wellness category. They're not isolated activities. So you're not one, generally people are not one to protect themselves from the sun, but also go binge drink and eat shitty food. If you're, being sun smart, you're also probably more likely than not watching what you eat, taking care of your body overall. So they tend, it's hard to tease out what the actual thing is that makes the improvement, but they go hand in hand.
Yeah. And drinking enough water.
100%. That being said, drinking water does not affect skin hydration status.
Oh, really?
None.
Oh.
Zero whatsoever. Except when you're truly clinically dehydrated, which most of the people are not. So we know from a lot of different very good evidence-based studies, the amount of water that you drink or fluid equivalents does not change the transepidermal water loss or the amount of water that's being lost in the skin. Only when we're actually clinically dehydrated do we see that in the skin. That's when you need an IV bag for a rehydration. Doesn't apply to most of us.
Okay, got it.
But if you're thinking about drinking all your water, you're probably thinking about being sun smart. You're probably thinking about a good diet. So all of those play a role. But
okay,
if you miss your glass, it won't affect your skin.
You know what I'm thinking of? When I had the acne H. pylori situation, the thing that frustrated me the most is I was like, I'm so healthy.
I know.
I'm so focused on diet. I drink enough water. I do all the right things. And it was almost like I could see under the acne that I did have good skin, but it was just like this infection almost getting in the way.
Yeah.
Which I just think it's so interesting.
So there's a few things that probably happened. One, obviously there's gut immune dysregulation. So there's something triggering your immune system and it's also showing up on the skin. That's number one. Number two, you're young and healthy and very active. So young adults, particularly women who are very active, tend to have a hormonal component of acne that's really stubborn. That's what we call the beard distribution or the bottom chin jawline area.
Yeah.
And that's just a marker of hormones that are a little bit more sensitive in your skin's response to them. Whether that's aggravated by an infection, that's aggravated by working out and being anabolic in that category, possibly. The other thing that makes it better is we often give antibiotics for acne, not because it's an infection, but because it regulates the inflammatory response. So in your setting, as you cleared the infection, you also helped reduce the inflammation in your skin.
Yeah.
So things got a lot better. But
it hasn't come back since.
Good.
I mean,
good. Yeah, I was just going to hear. That's awesome. Yeah.
I pray that it never comes back, but it was all here.
Yeah.
Here up, I didn't have anything. It was bizarre.
Yeah, hormone acne is stubborn, man. It's a really different, it's a different stubborn condition to treat. It's not regular acne.
Yeah, it's wild. And I'm noticing, Alex Earle, she has acne under the chin.
Yeah.
And she said she's been on Accutane 4 times, I think.
So that may be actually something totally different.
Yeah.
Which looks like acne, but what we call, I hate this term, it's disgusting, but it's not fungal acne. And it's usually a culprit of being on Accutane or antibiotics repeatedly over time. It clears your skin so that other pathogens that normally aren't there can take residents.
Interesting.
And it's really frustrating to treat. And I see a lot of young women who are very clean, who maybe over cleanse their skin, have been on repeated bouts of antibiotics or repeated bouts of Accutane with this persistent breakout that's kind of neck, upper chest area.
Huh.
And usually we look for yeast called Pityrosporum, or we look for a mite called Demodex. And those are usually the two culprits. Once you eradicate it, it's usually gone.
Oh, and is that eradicated through medication or?
Usually topicals,
Okay.
topical prescriptions. If not, sometimes we use oral medications, but usually topicals.
When you say over cleansing,
Yeah.
because I feel like I've done that before, because it's almost this feeling of like, I'm fixing it, I'm fixing it, I'm fixing it.
You and I both.
Yeah. What would classify as over cleansing?
I don't think there's a fixed answer to that. I think I tend to get oily. I mean, by mid-afternoon, you can fry a cutlet on my forehead. I'm like, I get greasy. So I feel like I got to clean the oil off so I don't break out.
Yeah.
Whereas my wife has very dry skin. You know, she washes her face once a day and she does totally fine. If she overwashes, she starts to get dry and flaky. In the US and most Western countries, we tend to over cleanse, thinking that if we clean the bacteria and grime off, it'll reduce breakouts, inflammatory rashes, eczema, psoriasis, etc. But we now know that a lot of that's driven from the inside out. A lot of that's driven from the skin's immune response. So I don't think we need to over cleanse, but every person needs to know their skin type. I know that if I don't wash my face, at least get the oil off after working out or after a long day in surgery, I'll start to break out next few days.
Yeah.
So you kind of got to know your skin.
This is a completely random question, but something I was just curious about when I was prepping for this discussion. But all of us girls are drinking out of Stanley cups, hydro flasks with the straw. Like we've all become straw babies, kind of. Are we all going to have wrinkly mouths?
It's the same as smokers' lines. Yeah. The reason why, not almost there. The smoke itself accelerated what we call radial rhytids or smokers' lines in lips.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. So repeated pursing contracts those muscles. Now, there's a lot of things that we do now that we didn't have 20, 30 years ago. Neurotoxins, Botox, Dysport, Xeomin, that can soften that. There's laser resurfacing that can help soften the line. So we have the tools that our mother's eras didn't have. But yeah, if you're really worried about those lines, or if you look at a family history and that you have a strong genetic risk for those, probably avoid the straws.
It makes me drink more water.
Me too.
Which is
I know.
why I like
I know.
it.
Which is crazy. I know.
It's like the pros and cons. Do I want to drink more water or not have the wrinkles?
I think you can treat the wrinkles.
Yeah.
You can't treat
You're right.
wellness as easily. So
You're
don't
right.
worry about it.
Ugh, these cups.
I know. It's always 2 steps forward and half a step sideways. Believe me. Like
I think we're all drinking out of these cups.
I know.
It's like a cultural phenomenon.
I know. I have like 60 different glass bottles, and every time I get a new one, I'm like, this is going to make me do it. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, shit, I didn't drink anything. So
I know. I go through a lot of those. So a lot of, when I talk about skin on this show, we talk a lot about pore-clogging ingredients.
Yeah.
What,
wow.
in your mind, like what classifies as a pore-clogging ingredient? And what does that do to our skin over time?
So anything that is comedogenic, namely things that mimic ceramides or are occlusive, tend to be pore clogging. Think of things like Vaseline, Aquaphor, petrolatum, ointment-based products tend to be clogging.
Okay.
Some oils do the same. So what they do is they basically go into the pores and they can't make their way out. So it creates a little incubator of the normal bacteria in our skin to start to grow and cook. And then our immune system finds and says, what the hell's going on? That's what a breakout is. So the first thing you want to do, if you tend to have what we call comedonal acne, blackhead, whitehead acne, you want to avoid anything that's comedogenic. So whatever skincare product you're using, the first line you want to see if it's been tested to be non-comedogenic. And most good derm products are. Most, cost-effective over-the-counter stuff have been tested for that. If you still can't figure out the culprit, oftentimes it's not the product you're putting on. It may be just your activities of daily living that are affecting it. So you get home, you don't wash your face after working out, or you get home, you sleep with your makeup on, and you tend to have comedonal acne, it's going to be a problem. Now, I know people that swear that I sleep with my makeup on all the time and they do fine. They don't have the predisposition to it. So there's no one size fits all problem with pore clogging, but more often than not, when you use occlusive, greasy substances, you're going to have a problem.
Sleeping in makeup is like my worst fear.
It's a disaster. I mean, you shouldn't do it just like, I mean, you take your, assuming you take your clothes off to sleep, you should do the same. Like,
Yeah.
you should just clean your face. I mean,
Yeah.
it's disgusting, but I'm not judging. And there's other things that I think there are other things that play a big role in that. Once you get past the age of acne, people can apply more occlusive things. In fact, older adults or my mom's era, they can put that. I recommend them to put petrolatum. It's the best moisturizer for their skin. It's the closest thing to our natural ceramides and oils that we can get. But in young adults who have well-functioning sebaceous glands that are producing oil in and of itself, now you're competing with each other.
Yeah.
And that's where you run into problems.
With today's day and age, like on TikTok, I mean, there's so many crazy skincare products. The skincare business is insane.
I know.
I found a brand that I really like and I feel good about as an acne-prone person, but how do we differentiate what's good, what's bad? Should our routine be 10 steps long? I feel like the 10-step long routines are kind of glorified.
Yeah, totally.
How do we know, what to do?
Great question. It gets harder and harder the busier social media gets.
Yeah.
I think skincare doesn't need to be expensive. That's
Okay.
number one. There's an inverse relationship between the amount you pay for your skincare and the result of your skin. That's over-the-counter products. Procedures, in-office treatments, totally different story. But your skincare should not be expensive. And multi-step procedures are always a higher risk for having some sort of problem go awry with either competing ingredients or your skin's response to them. So I have a very simple statement. I call it KISS, or keep it simple, stupid. The simpler, the better. You need to wash. If you're oily, get the oil off. If you're not oily, moisturize. And then you need something to protect you from the sun, and you need something to turn your skin over. That's all fundamental skincare needs to be. Now, that's building your foundation or building your cake. Everything else on top is like the cherry on top or the frosting, vitamin C and BHA or AHA acids, things like that, or tweaks once you've gotten your foundations down. But a good washing regimen and product is fundamental. A good sun protection regimen is fundamental. Doesn't have to necessarily be sunscreen, but that's probably the easiest. And then something that turns the skin over. So the retinoids are the best single thing that you can use for your skin. The brand name used to be Retin A. Now, brand names have fallen out of favor. So tretinoin or adapalene, which are prescription retinoids, they are the only thing in the world that will grow new collagen. It's the only topical product in the world that will reduce acne, prevent skin cancer, and improve fine lines and wrinkles. It's
Reduce
awesome.
skin cancer?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Reduce precancers, reduce skin cancers over time. So
Okay.
topicals require work. They require time to take effect, but they've been around for 50 years. They are every dermatologist's best kept, secret and friend. And hopefully the word will get out. Now, when we use the term retinoid, we interchangeably use them with retinol. You'll see a lot of retinol over the counter.
Okay.
You go to Sephora or Bloomingdale's or wherever, and you see retinol. There's an important caveat to that. All retinols are inactive. All over-the-counter retinols are prodrugs. They cannot be active, so they're made to need to convert into the active form. Why is this important? Because prescription retinoids, the effective form, when they're absorbed internally, and this is important to note, topical retinoids are just the cream's versions of Accutane. So not very many people know that, but Accutane is the oral version, and anything topical, retinol, retinoids, tretinoin, adapalene, etc., are just the cream versions of that.
Okay.
When the retinoid is absorbed, there's some theoretical risk of birth defects that can happen while you are actively using should you get pregnant.
Oh.
That's why they're really heavily controlled by the FDA in making them prescriptions. In the 70s and 80s, when Accutane came around, when topical retinoids came around, and we didn't know this, people were sharing pills, people were sharing creams, and some bad things happened. So we made it really strict to say, hey, this should be controlled by your physician. Well, as you mentioned, the cosmeceutical industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So they said, shit, there's a lot of money to be made on this. How do we circumvent this? So they came out with an inactive prodrug form called retinol that allows you to put it over the counter without a prescription. That being said, it's just not as effective as the prescription. So if you're going to use it, both are risky during pregnancy. Get the prescription form. It's effective. It works better. And stop it should you try to conceive or become pregnant.
Okay, because I was literally in my head going to text my esthetician and be like, why am I not on retinoid? But I'm trying to get pregnant, so I should not do that.
You shouldn't.
Got it. Okay, but my question for you is, when I did have really bad acne, I tried a retinoid and I swear it made my acne explode.
Yes.
And I've heard that that happens.
Yes.
Why?
You should be, one, somebody should have told you about that. And number two, we call it the purge or the turnover. So you do.
They did tell me that.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Because you flare in the first month or so because it speeds up how quickly your skin turns over. So our skin is brand new every 28 days. We have brand new skin every 28 days. When we use a topical retinoid, it increases that speed to every 7 days. So when you have things like blackheads and whiteheads and kind of juicier pimples, they may flare a little bit as the first month goes by. And if you're not warned, people think, this doctor's an idiot. What the hell did he give me? I'm looking worse than when I went into the office. But that's actually a good sign.
Okay.
That tells us, one, you're responding to the retinoid, and two, clear skin is in the future.
So is it pushing things out that maybe not visible yet?
It can, yeah. It does that. And what it does is it permanently shrinks oil glands.
Oh.
That's why, even if you don't have acne and you have really, you have a heavy sheen or you're very oily, retinoids help reduce that. There's a popular trend in Los Angeles and New York and a lot of cities where celebrities are is to actually microdose Accutane.
I know.
Just to keep their skin clear and to help prevent that sheen that is a problem when they're on the red carpet. And I see a lot of patients who ask for microdose Accutane.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
it
wild.
prevents breakouts. It's not the right way to do it, but it can be done effectively and safely. It's just a little off-label, but yeah.
With the rise in Ozempic usage,
Yeah.
are you seeing patients come in with like hair falling out or changes in their skin?
Yeah, the Ozempic face.
Yeah.
Call it. Yeah, it's a problem. Ozempic, Wegovy. Yeah, so it's funny you say that. Not very many people know this, so I can feel the vulnerability come out. But similar to your story, in high school, I used to be very overweight. And somewhere around senior year, I lost about 70 pounds.
Wow.
Got really into working out and fitness. And in college, I was a total gym bro. That's just what happened. And a lot of it was lifestyle and transformation and, wanting to change my health and my self-esteem, et cetera.
Yeah.
So during that time, I noticed I lost a lot of my hair. And my hair grew back different in a different pattern. I noticed a hollowing in my face. I noticed all the things that you notice with a rapid weight loss.
Yeah.
I'm seeing literally the same things I personally went through in all the patients that are on these GLP-1 agonists. And it's really a problem because the first place we tend to lose weight fastest after, especially around age 30, 35, is our face. And it's an evolutionary protective mechanism. We protect our girdle, assuming, we live in hunter-gatherer eras. Our body doesn't like to lose the weight around our pelvis because we don't know when we're going to eat again, but we lose it in our face. It's a frustrating problem because the changes are drastic and they're persistent when you're on the medicine. Limp, lifeless, sheenless hair. Women come and men come in, but men tend not to complain about their hair as much. Come in saying, what can I do to improve my hair? And so long as you're on the drugs and so long as you're losing weight, not much that we can offer besides some small improvements with medication. With face fat loss, it's become a plastic surgeon's dream because there's a lot of demand for procedures now to revolumize, redrape, resurface all the changes that occur, especially around the eyes, especially around the cheekbones. Even the color of skin is different. With the amount of weight loss and the desire not to eat, which is what a lot of these medications do, you see this like lackluster color that we used to see in patients who used to be sick or who were in the hospital or who were dealing with major medical illnesses. This loss of turgor in their skin as a result of the drugs. It's hard to treat, but there are things that we can do, especially in the cosmetic world.
Do you think it's like just a lack of nutrients?
Yeah, that you're not eating.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
for sure. You're not
Because-
eating, you're not drinking. And if you eat or drink a lot, you feel nauseated.
Yeah.
Totally.
I feel like, when I lost weight, I did lose it rapidly, but I was still eating and
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
my
yeah,
nutrients.
yeah,
And I don't think I had hair loss or anything like that.
Yeah, so your body was equipped to handle it.
Yeah.
And some people have that sensitivity, whereas others don't. That shock loss is called telogen effluvium. My body was very sensitive to it. I mean,
Got it.
I lost that in a 4-month span.
Oh, wow.
It was really fast for a guy.
Yeah.
And as I ate again and gained some muscle and got big at the gym, things kind of returned, but they returned different. And
Yeah.
we're seeing that with Ozempic and Wegovy patients. When they stabilize their weight and we see them get off the drug, things don't go back to what they were baseline. They're just inherently changed. Now, we don't know if that's just accelerated what their body was going to do in the future, or if there's something inherently different about the drug, but their skin, hair, nails permanently look different.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I've also heard that it helps with people who have PCOS and certain like inflammatory issues. Does it help with acne?
So it can, partly. If your acne is driven because you have PCOS, if your acne is driven because there is some sort of hormone dysregulation, or if your acne is driven by your dietary habits, which tend to go hand in hand, patients with PCOS tend to not tolerate sugars very well. They tend to be a little bit more insulin resistant.
Yeah.
Those patients' acne does get better, partly because they're not consuming a high glycemic index, and partly because it helps reduce their body weight, which decreases this insulin resistance.
Yep.
Usually you see that in the hormone distribution acne, not in the upper half.
Yep.
But totally. I mean, it improves so many things. I see a lot of women with this frustrating condition called hidradenitis, which is like acne of the sweat producing regions, underarms, groin area. It's repeated boils. It's really frustrating. Patients tend to be a little bit more overweight who deal with this. And we haven't had great treatments, but as they get their sugars under control with these drugs, their skin disease gets better.
Wow.
We even see it with psoriasis and eczema. As they get their sugar under control, their psoriasis and eczema improves.
Wow.
So that's the cool part about these drugs, but the Ozempic Face kind of sucks.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I mean, I'm sure LA is just like
Oh my God. It's,
full of it, right?
I get asked to prescribe it every week. And I'm like, probably not the right person
Like,
to
I don't
ask.
do that.
Yeah. And I probably I wouldn't condone it, but there's so many places that do it. And look, diet's a big problem in the United States.
Yeah.
Food quality is a big problem in the United States. Morbid obesity, I mean, we're like kind of laughed at by the rest of the world. I think the drugs are great. Are they being overused? Sure, a lot of drugs are being overused. I mean, anything that'll give you a good outcome will be abused in the United States, whether it's Accutane, whether it's Ozempic, whether it's any of the stimulant drugs. There's so many things. We live in a culture that wants, if this is good, we want better.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunately the way of the game.
Yeah. No, it's been very interesting to have people come on the show and just hear everyone's opinion on it. I mean, like there are some side effects and long-term effects that are concerning, but at the same time, you're right. Like obesity is
100%.
the number one issue in the US.
If it's used well, I think they're awesome. The long-term effects of you dying from a heart attack, stroke, complications from diabetes will far outweigh the rare risks from the drugs.
Yeah.
It's when young, healthy patients who really don't need the drug start to use it that the body's like, hey, what the hell? What are you doing this for?
Yeah.
We're okay. You could change this with lifestyle.
Yeah.
But we unfortunately are a pill popping culture in a country.
Yeah.
It's easier to take an injection or a pill than it is to change your entire lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
No,
like,
so true.
it's real. That's the hardest part, is the mental, strength or stamina to be able to tolerate it. And the people that don't have it, you see when they stop the drug, rebound right away.
Yeah.
It's like that with any weight loss journey.
I know. Well, it's funny because I've talked about on here someone has asked me whether I would have taken it back in the day. And I'm so grateful I didn't have the option, because I learned so much about, I wouldn't be here right now.
100%.
And I'm sure you feel the same your senior year.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. I think that transition, it just changes your thinking about things. And it's not just your weight, it's your approach to your health, your approach to career goals, your approach to not popping a pimple because you want to, but you shouldn't. It's not like the single target. It's the change in your outlook.
Totally.
100% agree.
Yeah. Changed my whole identity.
Yeah, same.
Looking forward with skin cancer, dermatology, what are you hoping we discover?
I think having trained in Silicon Valley, I think I love the idea of artificial intelligence incorporated in healthcare, in diagnostics, in therapeutics. I think that's where the future is. So the need or the accessibility to high quality care is closer than we think.
Mm-hmm.
I think I wish we could revert back a little bit from this split in opinions. And it's not just in dermatology, it's in everything in the United States. You're either in camp A or camp B. And it's blasphemy for a skin cancer surgeon to say you can enjoy the sun. I wish we could kind of revert back a little bit and realize like, hey, we can do all the fun things we want with some caution in certain characteristics. But I think in the future, if I never have to cut on a face again, that's what I specialize in, unfortunately, is operating on people's faces, I will be very happy.
Yeah.
A lot of people, talk to me when I first came out with the idea of sun powder. They're like, what are you doing? I'm like, listen, if I never have to operate on a young or old person's face, if I never have to remove a nose, an entire lip, an ear, I'm happy. My job here is done. So I think the future is preventative care. I think the future is AI integration, and you're realizing it's not all of it's not in our control. So enjoy it while it can.
I think I'm going to start putting a scoop of sun powder in with my greens.
I hope it works. It's amazing.
I'm going to, because I'm fair skinned and it's something I'm worried about because it's genetic for me.
Totally. And I think when we look at these things, I think it takes some time when there is a challenge to the dogma. 30 years ago, sunscreen was like crazy. You wanted that copper tone color. It was healthy to have a glow. We shifted this way and saying the sun is horribly bad for us. And now we're shifting a little bit more saying, well, wait a second. I don't know if it's horribly bad for us because there's consequences of not being outside, not getting vitamin D, et cetera.
Yeah.
But anything that challenges the dogma it'll take some time.
It's like there's a gray area to everything.
Totally.
You
just figure out what works for you.
Yeah. This is the question I ask every single guest.
Yeah.
What does wellness mean to you?
It's the ability to be there for my family without having to worry that I will or not. I think a lot changed for me, one, becoming a husband, and two, becoming a father, that my perspectives used to be in wellness a lot more self-centered.
Yeah.
And now my wellness is, what can I do with my life so that I can take my worries away so I can spend time with my kids and family? And I think I don't know if I've ever thought about it like that until now, but wellness changes. It changes a lot. And your meaning 20 years ago to 10 years ago to 5 years ago is very different.
Yeah.
In college, wellness to me meant the most striations in my shoulder muscles and like the leanest weight and the lowest body fat percentage.
Yeah.
And then going through med school, it was every student goes through this, not dying from some rare disease because you read about it in a textbook. And then as you get a little bit older and you see like your priorities change, I think wellness is an ever shifting target, but now it's geared towards somebody else and not me.
I think that's beautiful. And I so agree with you. Mine has changed so much since I first started. So really appreciate you coming
Totally.
on.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Where can everyone find you online?
So I practice in Los Angeles. I have a small social media presence. It's just my name, last name, MD, Teo Soleymani, MD. If anybody's interested in sun powder, we have a website, sunpowder.co. I think it's an awesome product and evidence-based. We did a lot of clinical trials on the product, but you guys can email me, any which way. Almost everybody has my cell phone, so feel free to text me. All my patients
Zero privacy.
None. All my patients have my numbers. Anybody I've ever operated on, my colleagues, everybody has my number.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, totally. Pleasure.
Thanks for joining us on the Pursuit of Wellness podcast. To support this show, please rate and review and share with your loved ones. If you want to be reminded of new episodes, click the subscribe button on your preferred podcast or video player. You can sign up for my newsletter to receive my favorites at marilewellen.com. It will be linked in the show notes. This is a Wellness Loud production produced by Drake Peterson, Fiona Attucks, and Kelly Kyle. This show is edited by Mike Fry, and our video is recorded by Luis Vargas. You can also watch the full video of each episode on our YouTube channel at Mari Fitness. Love you, Power Girls and Power Boys. See you next time. The content of this show is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for individual medical and mental health advice and does not constitute a provider-patient relationship. As always, talk to your doctor or health team.